highway initially, you were having those urges more strongly, and then after you stopped and maybe thought about what was going on a little bit, the intensity of the urges went down. When you were at home, were you still having those suicidal thoughts? Were you having any sort of...
No, I was thinking, like, I need to take my meds more, or maybe try to figure that out with the meds. Like, I don't feel like they do a damn thing, you know, but I don't take them, you know, and I was thinking that maybe I should do that more, or I don't know. So I just, because I don't like feeling this way, you know, and I don't know. I need to figure it out.
I mean, that makes sense. It's not fun to feel so down and so angry and to have those kinds of negative thoughts just running through your head all the time. It makes sense for you to be, you know, feeling frustrated and not knowing how to change. And I think it's interesting that your night ended with you thinking about ways that maybe you could change something in the situation, or maybe make things different. And I think that's, you know, some of the purpose of this activity too is really deeply understanding what kind of events can maybe lead to these feelings that are, you know, that make you want to maybe rehearse this act that you've talked about in the past about, you know, as the way you would take your own life if you decided to. Can we talk about some of the outcomes of this event? I know we talked that you had maybe a positive outcome as maybe it made you think a little bit about what you could do differently. Would you agree with that, having that kind of situation, or?
Yes and no. You know, I feel like maybe there's stuff I can do that I'm not doing right now, you know, and I guess that kind of makes me, like, when it gets that super intense, you know, I think that there's, like, it just happens and happens and happens and happens, you know, and I'm just like, there's got to be some way to change the cycle.
Yeah.
You know, so, but, like, I don't think the meds are right, though. I took them on, I forget what it was like on Friday.
Yeah, I saw that one day.
Yeah, you know, but, like, I just take it and, like, it doesn't make me feel any different. I don't know, you know, like, but I know we've talked that, like, maybe that can help, you know, so, I'm sorry, what's the question?
No, you know, it's fine. I think that this is productive to talk about the medication, and I think that that's something we need to continue to talk about. One, if, you know, if it's not working, are there changes we need to make? Two, are there changes, you know, you could make, commitments that you could make to maybe give it a try a little more, you know, consistently before we made those types of changes, things like that. I think are conversations we could have. I'm trying to think of this event, so deciding to go drive on the highway. What benefited you from doing that, and what were the, you know, positive outcomes for you? Does it give you a release to actually get out and be driving on the highway after having that urge for so long? Are there any other positive effects of that?
I miss just having that freedom to go out. You know, it's almost like I can breathe once I just leave that neighborhood, you know, so that was good, you know, and I feel like it just gets, like, whenever I go on the highway and I'm thinking about dying, you know, like, it brings me to this moment where it all seems a lot more real and then I can get my head around it, you know, and then I can kind of move on a little bit.
Like the idea of dying feels more real when you're out moving? I'm just trying to make sure
well, no, I guess, like, there's just, like, all this emotion just kind of builds up, you know, and just, like, I don't know, I didn't say this earlier, you know, but, like, when I pulled on the side of the road, I was just crying and crying and crying, and, like, once that's over, like, I feel really tired and exhausted, but I feel like it's not as urgent anymore, you know.
Okay. It sounds like that's kind of a release for you of all those emotions that are building and building and building.
Yeah.
Would that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay. So, you know, it sounds like, you know, when you do this, you get a feeling of freedom that you don't have a lot because you don't have access to that transportation, or you don't have the opportunity to leave your house a lot. So you get that feeling of freedom. And then maybe you also feel sort of a release emotionally, you know, just from going out and really feeling the emotions more strongly than you maybe are at home. Does that make sense? Does that sound right?
Yeah.
Okay, so what are some negative outcomes of deciding to do this?
Well, I don't have a driver's license, so if I were pulled over, like, it would be real bad.
Okay, so yeah, that could be a negative outcome. It didn't happen this time, but it could happen that you'd be pulled over and you'd face some trouble with the law. Okay. What are some other negative outcomes that could come from making this decision?
Well, I could die, you know, and if I did that, you know, like, will he be in the same situation I'm in, like he didn't have a car, you know, or what if the truck driver, you know, or somebody else got into an accident, you know, based off that accident, and, you know, I'd be hurting a bunch of people just because I'm being a dumbass, you know.
Yeah. So it sounds like maybe some of the big ones are you could face legal trouble, you know, you could die, you know, if you made the decision to actually do that. Willie could lose his car, and you could hurt others in the process. Does that kind of sum up maybe some of those negative outcomes?
Yeah.
Okay. Something that I didn't ask earlier that I'm curious about is how fast do you drive when you're going on the highway? Does it correlate with how you're feeling, or?
It sounds kind of stupid, but I follow the speed limit because I don't want the cops to, you know, like
to prevent
this. Yeah. So like I wasn't going super fast. I miss the days where I could just open up on the highway, but I didn't do that.
So you went the speed limit to try to prevent this, you know, but you still had the option to go into the other lane if you had made that decision, and you know the results would still be really dangerous even if you weren't going over the speed limit.
Yeah.
Okay. So looking at this, does this feel like a pretty good maybe picture of what was happening in the days before this decision and maybe what happened afterwards? And
Yeah.
okay. I think that this gives us a little bit of insight into, you know, these things that happen for you. You know, you're having these troubles with your children, and that's, you know, you can see that a few times on this. You know, one when the call from the school happened, one when you tried to reach out and make like a connection, a human connection with your daughter, and she was busy and wasn't able to talk with you. So I can definitely see how these are kind of playing into this. I think that, you know, we've seen it in the past that you're drinking usually, on days that you drink, maybe you're more likely to have these kinds of things, and we don't really understand why yet from the conversations we've had, but it seems like maybe they're connected just based on, you know, doing things like this. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Okay. You also are having this, you know, conflict with your neighbor. You're not having a lot of social support overall. Okay. I think I'll go ahead and add sort of isolated down here because I think you're not having a lot of good, you know, interactions with people. A lot of the interactions that are listed on here are kind of negative.
Yeah.
Or maybe short, you know, and not extended, not anything really personal. Okay. I think that gives us a pretty good picture of what's going on. You know, you were having all these things going on and you decided to go borrow Willie's car. You said you were going to the Quick Mart, and you did go to the Quick Mart, but you also decided to go on the highway. You drove on the highway, you stopped, you sort of had this release of emotions, you felt these really strong emotions, you decided to go back home, you didn't act on your urges, you know, to switch over into another lane or to, you know, do those behaviors that we've talked about. You know, so you go back home, you give Willie his car. This is kind of what sounds like maybe happened on that night. So next I wanted to ask about if there's anywhere in this chain that we've drawn where you think something could have changed and maybe you wouldn't have ended up here. Is there any link in the chain that you think could have changed that?
It's just super hard for me because I just don't feel like I can change my situation, you know.
Yeah.
I wish I wasn't at home all day
Mm-hmm.
by myself, you know, just with nothing to do. You know, I'm trying to look at that, you know.
Yeah, I think being alone is a thing that, you know, exasperates all of these other things. And I don't know how, you know, we could brainstorm some ideas of things you could do when you're feeling really alone and you feel that buildup of emotions and what could maybe be done.
The days that the VA comes and picks me up, you know, and I go and do that, like, that kind of drives me crazy also, but, like, I feel like my day is full, and I'm not,
Okay.
you know, I'm not just sitting there rotting, you know, so, like, I feel like that makes me feel not so intense.
Okay.
Um,
So days when the VA comes, they pick you up and they take you to places, is that correct?
yeah, we go to, like, this day center thing.
Okay. And do you get to sign up for when you want to go to the VA, or is it like a preset day
It's
that
like,
you go?
like once a week. I kind of volunteer there, so.
Okay. So those days maybe you feel better. Is there the opportunity to volunteer or do something like that with your time more frequently than you currently do?
Yeah, I can ask about that.
I mean, I'm just thinking maybe, you know, any type of, you know, tasks and human connection that, you know, you could form may help on those days.
Yeah.
So maybe one possible solution would be just seeing if it would be, you know, even just testing it out for a week if you went 2 days instead of 1, or 3 days instead of 1. How would your mood be different? How would you feel differently?
Yeah.
Does that sound like something you'd be willing to try?
Yeah.
So I think that's a good idea. Do you see any other areas in this chain where maybe, or the sequence of events that maybe could have been changed to lessen the feelings you were feeling and maybe prevent this? Even if they feel out of your control, you know, just we can think of different ideas of things you could try.
I guess I could ask if Willie would go with me, or someone would go with me, so that I'm just not by myself when I go.
So like when you decide to go to the Quick Mart or something, inviting Willie? Okay.
Yeah, or maybe figuring some other way to get my stuff. It's a catch-22 because I love getting out on my own. I don't want to depend on someone to get my things for me, or, you know, and I like leaving the house and the neighborhood, you know, and it's nice to do that on my own, but it also makes these problems. I'm not supposed to be driving, you know,
Yeah.
so.
I know we've talked about like the bus route before, and I know you don't really like to be dependent upon something, but you know there are other options for transportation. They don't come with this feeling of freedom, maybe they don't come with this release, but they also maybe don't come with some of these negative outcomes as well. Can you think of any other, I mean, pros or cons of choosing a different mode of transportation?
Yeah, I've used the bus before, you know, like I have to make sure that, like, I'm awake during those hours of operation, so that's kind of like I'm not sleeping, you know, at night. I am sleeping during the day, and so, like, sometimes I miss, like, that window of time where they're operating. And, like, to get to the bus stop is, like, 3 blocks, you know, so, like, I have to walk that, but, like, it'd be, I could just end up doing a lot of walking, you know, with the bus stop.
Yeah. So
And waiting, but, like, I guess it would get me out too. You know, it takes a while, and it's not like I have anything else to do.
yeah. So it sounds like there are definitely cons to using the bus. You know, you're having to walk and wait, and you're having to alter your sleep schedule maybe. But there are also pros in that it gives you, I mean, it sounds like it maybe would give you the opportunity to get out even at times when Willie's not home. So maybe during the day when he's at work or you don't have access to borrowing his car. Okay. Do you think there are any other links we could talk about, you know, potentially changing or, you know, altering in some way to help you avoid getting to this point?
Well, my daughter would say that I need to stop drinking, but, like, I know that I drink a lot, but, like, that amount of alcohol doesn't make me drunk, you know, and so it's like the only thing I got right now, you know, and I don't really want to stop.
Yeah. So it serves a purpose for you, it sounds like. You know, maybe it keeps you occupied, and does it dull the feelings that you're feeling in any way, or does it benefit you in any other way to drink when you're feeling, you know, down or alone?
I feel like if I don't drink, it's worse.
Okay. So currently, you know, it looks like, you know, you drank both of these days, and there were some problems on these days. You know, whether we know if it's causal or not, we don't have that, but it does seem like some problems are happening on, you know, on the same days that you're drinking. Have you ever tried to reduce your drinking, even just a little bit, to see if there's a difference? I know it's something we've kind of talked about before, but it's not something, to my knowledge, that you've done since you've been working with me.
I haven't done it since I worked with you.
Have you tried it in the past?
Yeah.
I mean, it makes sense for you to have the urge to drink if it makes you feel better when you're having all of these things and these stressors going on in your day. When you tried to reduce in the past, did you notice any changes in your life?
I felt like I was more irritable, you know, when I
Okay.
tried, you know, and I don't know why that was the case, you know.
Okay, so the cons, maybe you feel more irritable. You don't feel as good as maybe you do when you drink. Is that correct?
I don't know that yeah, I guess that's correct. I don't know that I've ever drank this much before, I guess, you know.
Okay. Were
Before the accident, I wasn't in this situation, you know.
Yeah, because you were working and you had maybe more distractions.
Yeah.
Okay. So when you tried to reduce your drinking before, did you have any benefits? Did you talk to your family about that? Was your daughter supportive? Was there any other, like, anything else that would fall into, like, a pros category for quitting or reducing your drinking? Sorry.
Well, the kids are at home, you know, and so it was different, you know.
Yeah.
No, I can't really think of anything.
Okay, that's fine. I just wanted to start the conversation and see if there was anything that came to mind. I wanted to ask, you know, when you were experiencing this argument with your neighbor, and, you know, this is kind of an ongoing argument, have you ever tried to use any of the skills from group about communication or effective communication, or, you know, does it typically escalate pretty quickly?
It gets pretty quick.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not like something that you've tried to use those skills on yet?
No.
Okay. I was just curious if you'd tried to implement any of those. So we've talked about, you know, some things here. Are there any of these things that you think you'd be willing to try this week?
Well, I can talk to Karen at the VA about kind of getting out more often. I wonder if that's possible.
Okay. I think that would be a good conversation to have. And just to see how it affects, you know, your week overall. You know, we can reflect on that. If you do have the opportunity to increase your volunteering by a day or two, we can see how maybe that affects the rest of the stuff that we've been talking about, and just kind of, out of curiosity, see if it helps or not. Does that sound like a good plan?
Yeah.
Okay. I think that's a good place to start and just see how this works. And I think we can keep this in mind. I'll save this, and in future sessions we can always come back to it and talk about it more. Do you have anything you want to add to this kind of discussion that we've been having?
No.
Okay. Before we end today, I'd like to go ahead and check out with you, if that's okay, and see how you're feeling now. So just the same 4 scales that we've been talking about. So right now, currently, 0 to 5, where would you rate yourself on misery?
3.
Okay. What about self-harm?
3.
Okay. Suicidal behavior?
3.
Okay. And an urge to quit therapy?
1.
Okay. Well, Adam, I think what we can do is you check in with the VA this week, and we'll have a conversation next week, checking in about what happened, if you were able to volunteer more, and we'll see how it goes, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay, thanks.
Yeah.